A few weeks ago, I had made a video kind of outlining my first experiences using COMC's eBay live auctions. Now, these auctions are basically, if you're not familiar, each card is put up for auction for 30 seconds, and people have 30 seconds to bid on this card. You know, if somebody bids in the last second, it'll add 5 more seconds on it, but essentially it's a 30-second to maybe 60-second at the max. Now, I am finding it to be a wild ride selling cards in this space. I will make future videos that go into specific details of how much I'm making with some cards, how much I'm losing with some cards, what I'm learning about what kind of cards are best to submit to those. I am going to go into kind of a deep dive in a future video. But in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the psychology of this space and why I am finding it to be such a wild ride. The types of cards that sell in these live auctions and the amount that they will go for are oftentimes not reflected at all by comps in other like standard kinds of spaces. It can go way less or way more depending on the nature of that particular group and whether that card seems like it might be a valuable card. You know, there's not a lot of time for people to research when the auction is 30 seconds long. So it creates an entirely different dynamic, and I am finding it to be the most fascinating space. So let's get into this. On COMC, they opened up this option to be able to send your cards to COMC live streams. They open it every Friday morning for a really short amount of time. They have a submission window where you can submit your cards, and then throughout the week, they will have different times where they will, have these quick, short live auctions. Now, in my first experience with it, the first couple of weeks, you would go, if I went into that live stream itself when the cards were being sold, there could be as many as 2,300 people, more than 2,000 people. Sometimes in a less popular stream, it might only be 400 or 500. But you would have a lot of people on these live streams. And because there's only 30 seconds, it doesn't give people much time to research the card, especially because these eBay live auctions are only done on the phone. You can't do it on your computer at all. So, in my mind, if I had it on my computer, I would probably have a second window open and I could do really quick research about certain cards if I was interested in buying them to see what their comp is. When it's on the phone, I imagine a lot of time people are maybe like sitting on the toilet or, in their living room. They don't have the computer. It's difficult for them to multitask on their phone while also bidding and have a 30-second window. So a lot of times because of that, people are just guessing. They're bidding on something that I think this is a good price. I think this is a good price. But I'm finding that people don't really have a good awareness of what is a good price for a lot of cards. And sometimes the psychology of the space and the fear of missing out, FOMO, can create an environment where people go a little bit crazy on their bids. Just recently I had like a Kobe Bryant rookie. It was a Skybox premium. This is one example. In future videos, I'll go through more examples. It's oftentimes sold somewhere between $15 and $20 for a raw version, which I think is a great deal. It's a beautiful card. I've bought this card several times. I have one for myself. I've bought it to grade before, and I got a PSA 9, and I ended up selling it for a nice profit. I've bought this several times to flip. It's a great card. But when I put it up for sale on the COMC live auctions, I was extremely surprised on the insanity of the run-up of how much that card ended up selling for. It ended up selling for $50. Now, you could go on to eBay, buy it now. You could go into COMC and find this card for $15 to $20, no problem. But it's sold for $50. I bought it for like $10.50 or something like that. Sold it for $50, 5 times my money in the matter of a few days. But the reasoning behind why that card, I think part of it was, of course, Kobe is an iconic player. So I'm finding any iconic players that like transcend generations, their cards there's more of a collector base. There's more people who want those cards. So that's, of course, part of it. Part of it is this particular Skybox Premium rookie. It's shiny. It's kind of looks cool. It has a aesthetic to it that's nice. And then because, it's a Kobe rookie. So if you don't have a whole lot of knowledge and don't realize that there is a ton of Kobe rookies and some of them are, really overprinted, you might think this is like, oh, Kobe's one of the best players in the NBA. Like, you have a Michael Jordan, you have a Kobe Bryant, a few other players. So he's up there in that conversation among the top 10 players of all time. So you're going to think, if you don't have a ton of knowledge about sports cards, you're going to think this is one of those cards that's going to hold a lot of value. But of course, we know the laws of supply and demand that if there's a card that is overproduced, that is printed a ton, then oversupply, then even if the demand is very high, which I'm sure the demand is very high on most Kobe rookies, but because the supply is so high, generally the value will be low. But in that moment, in that 30 seconds, people don't have time to think through those things or to research and to see. So they're in the moment being like, okay, this is a cool card. I like it. I want it. I'm going to bid. And then that card bids up and it ends up selling for $50 when 10 seconds of research, 15 seconds of research, they could have found that same card for 1/5 of the price, 1/4 of the price, something like this. And this seems to happen over and over again. There's other cards that fall through the cracks. You could have a really nice card that actually, the comps might be 20, 30 bucks or something like that. And because people are not that aware of this specific card, or this player isn't hyped up, or he's not an all-time great, they might not realize that this is actually a very valuable card. And I've had cards fall through the cracks that end up selling for $2.99 or something when I was totally hoping to get like 30 bucks out of it. That happens also. So it's this space that I think is really fascinating to look at the psychology, because I think it shows it shows the over-reliance the sports card market has on comps, on being able to, on your screen, look up a comp before making a decision, because this is showing me clearly that a lot of people don't have that kind of awareness or general close to comp value in their mind. They need to be able to look it up. They just don't know. They can't intuit it or something like that, because that's essentially what they're trying to do when they bid on these cards. They're trying to guess on what the comp probably is, and they're way off. Again and again, they're way off. In my mind, part of it is telling me that people don't understand the market that well. A lot of people. I mean, if you have 2,000 people in there, all you need is 2 people who don't understand the market very well, and they could bid each other up. That might be all it is. I mean, there might be 0.1% of the people in that stream who don't have an awareness of the market value, and they run up cards that they really don't need to be running up. It's very possible that's what's happening. But it's happening over and over again. So I don't know if it's like the same handful of people that are not too aware, that just like this card and end up, bidding for it. Maybe they like the chase, something like this. I think that's another thing that these live auctions bring that you don't get in other spaces. I mean, the live auction, the type of person who's going to want to buy in a live auction is you have to be a little nervous. You have to be a little like ready to go. It's the dopamine is moving like it does if you're doing, other active things. If you're buying a card on eBay, you have time. You can see, okay, even if you want to snipe it at the end, you have 7 days or 5 days or 3 days to kind of look at that card to see, okay, here's some of the cards I'm going to bid for. Here's the current market value. This is what I'm going to try to do. Maybe they'll use a sniping tool. That's one thing I've been doing more recently. I can make a video about that in the future. But you have time to think. There's no rush. There's no pressure at the last moment. But in these live auctions, the entire time is the last moment. You have very little time. If you see a card running up, you might start to think, oh, like let's say this Kobe rookie as an example. You see that at the beginning, maybe it went from 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99, $3.99, $4.99 very quickly. So you have this thought in your mind, like, oh, this is a sought card. This is a card people want because you see this movement going up. I want this card. I'm going to quickly bid on it too. And that brings the price up. And then 1 second left to bid, you bid on it. Only gives you 5 more, the next people 5 seconds. They have to think very quickly. They can't make a slow, thoughtful decision. They have to react. They have to react. And that reaction causes those prices to go up insanely. So I think this is just a really fascinating little thing to be experimenting with. I assume this is similar in a Whatnot stream, for example. If you're one of the influencers that runs a Whatnot stream and gets a lot of people in those Whatnot streams, I bet they're sometimes selling their cards for a lot more than it would be sold elsewhere. It's more of just the FOMO, the fear of missing out, thinking that a card is something it is not, and then basing your decisions on a misunderstanding of the reality of that card, essentially is what it is. I'm learning a lot. I'm making a ton of money in that space on the COMC live auctions, and I'm gradually, as I'm submitting more and more cards, I'm learning what kinds of cards are the cards that spark off this FOMO, because there's certain cards that just don't, that could be very valuable, but they're not well known. For example, I found that case hits. If you do like a case hit that is not super well known. Like I haven't tried to do something with a Kaboom, for example. I don't think I would try with a really high-end card because it's a risky space. You don't know who is going to be in that live stream at any given moment. There could be a ton of people in there. There could be a lot less. There's a lot of factors that might influence that based on the time, based on how much marketing there was for that particular stream. You don't know. You could have a stream with 2,500 people. You could have a stream with 400 people, and it would be a completely different scenario. So I'm not really experimenting with higher end cards, but I do know that I have put up a few case hits of cards that are not that well known, like not a Kaboom or Downtown, but other case hits that are still cool. And in that space, in that live auction space, those cards have done absolutely horrifically, terribly. Those, I've lost a bunch of money on even some stuff that I thought was well known in the hobby, like Dragon Scales. Those really fell through the cracks when I put them up for auction. The select Dragon Scale from football, those sold terribly. Or the Cosmic Prisms. I sold a couple of like field level Cosmic Prisms, and they went for like a quarter or a fifth of the comp value. White Sparkle Prisms, those didn't sell well. All of these like kind of like really they're I thought they were well known, but in the live auction space, those cards have all done terribly for me. But cards like this Kobe rookie, or like other like hyped up players with a card that just has a cool look that might be worth very little. I had a Michael Jordan card that's like a die cut in the four corners. It looked cool. It was maybe, I think, maybe a $10 to $15 card normally. I think I bought it for about $12. It also sold for like $40 because it was a Michael Jordan card. It was a card that didn't look like just one of those cheap dollar Jordan cards, because I think there's a general awareness that there's a lot of cheap $1 Jordan cards. So I think some of those cards don't do that well. But this card like looked cool. And so it ended up selling for $40-$45 when people could have bought it for $10. It's a hyped up player, either an all-time great or a currently young, all over the media type of hyped up player. One of those two, and it has a cool aesthetic. Even if it's not that valuable, just looks like it should be valuable aesthetically, then it will probably have a run-up, because people won't know the market value. They won't understand the supply side of it, and they'll just think it's cool. It has a demand, but they're not understanding the supply side of it, and they're making decisions based on just the demand side of it, and then these cards run up. So I find it to be a fascinating space where buyers are making terrible decisions. These COMC live auctions, I really think that I have probably submitted a solid, I don't know, somewhere between 1/5 of 1/10 of all of the COMC auctions in basketball have probably been mine, to be honest. I've been communicating with a couple other sports card buddies, Sports Card Anonymous being one of them, and then another guy who's from his hometown as well. And I think the three of us combined in certain streams are probably like half of the cards in that space. So I think, I've been learning a lot in this space, and I'm finding it to be a wild ride. In the next video, maybe not the very next one, but because it's going to take me a little bit of time, I've sold hundreds and hundreds of cards so far through this, and I kind of want to go through and compile the data from those cards to really see, because the cards that are making me money are making me crazy money. I'm selling $1 cards for $10 regularly. I'm selling $10 cards for $25, $30 regularly. But I'm also, some of the experiments of selling cards that I had bought for $40, I've sold those for $10. That's also happened a number of times as well. So I'm going to try to compile what it is. I have an impression of what I am learning about what cards are the best kinds to submit, but I want to have that a little bit more data to back that up, and a little bit more kind of analysis that I can share with you guys. So, if you decide that you want to try to submit some cards to these COMC live auctions, or even other live auction spaces that you have a little bit of awareness of what kinds of cards might be the best to be in there. And the other purpose I wanted to make this video was just as a buyer for you to be a little bit aware of this reality. Just because a card is going up quickly in a live auction doesn't mean that you should jump into that mix. If anything, it means, whoa, like I got to be careful right here. FOMO's happening. I don't want to get wrapped up in that FOMO, and to take a step back. That's why, when they first started running these COMC live auctions, I was both trying to sell cards, but I was also jumping into the stream as a buyer to see what opportunities there may be. And there was certain streams, there was really good opportunities. Some of the mixed sport streams where it wasn't one sport, there was some great opportunities for buying in there. The cards I sold in that one were terrible because, if you go into a basketball stream, people who want basketball cards are in there. If you go into a football stream, people who want football cards are in there. If you go into a mixed stream, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you got some Pokemon, you got some hockey, you got some non-sports cards, you got some basketball, you got some football. who is the audience for that? It's narrower. So the stream was less well attended, and the people in that stream were less eager to buy a lot of the cards. So I was snagging up some cards in that stream insanely. I bought a Shade and Sharp Prism Rookie Green Ice for $3. $3 for a Shade and Sharp Rookie Parallel in Prism. And you know, I ended up reselling that one in a basketball live auction for $14. So that was really funny. I bought it from one auction, $3. I submitted it the next week to an actual basketball auction, and it sold for $14. And even that was a really good deal for that person. That, you know, I think really that card is on eBay. I think at the time was selling for like $20 or something. I can't recall. That just shows also the psychology of each individual stream is a little bit different. You know, if you go into these mixed streams, you don't have a niche audience. You just have people who are interested in cards in a general sense, and they're not oftentimes going to be buying just anything. You know, if you have a hockey card in a mixed group of 400 people bidding, there might be 2 hockey collectors in there. But if you have a hockey card in a hockey stream and there's 400 people in the stream, you have 400 hockey collectors in there. So the mixed kind of things don't work very well. So anyway, this is all stuff. I'm getting into other topics related to this, and I will make some future videos digging into some of these things, just as, like, you know, things I'm learning that I can share with you guys that maybe hopefully is useful. I mean, that's the whole purpose. I'm doing this channel, so hopefully some of this is useful. But anyway, that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Peace.